Picture this scene with me. You're at a fancy restaurant in New York. You sit down, open the menu, and order the tastiest thing on it, a beef burger with a melted layer of cheese. The waiter comes to you and politely says, "Sorry, we can't add the cheese." You're confused and ask him, "Why? Did you run out of cheese?" He tells you, "No, we have cheese. But this restaurant is kosher, and kosher law forbids mixing meat and dairy." You think to yourself, "So there's a law that stops me from eating cheese with meat? Since when?" The answer: for more than 3,000 years. And today, this ancient religious rule still shapes the lives of many observant Jewish communities around the world. Their kitchens, their restaurants, even massive food companies that spend millions of dollars to comply with it. Let's dive into this story from start to finish. This system is known as Kashrut, and food that complies with these laws is called kosher. Many people associate kosher only with the ban on pork or shellfish. That's part of it. But it's a small piece of a much bigger system. Kosher law addresses three things: what can be eaten, which animals and fish are permitted, how it's prepared, the method of slaughter and who performs it, and what can be eaten together. And this last part is what we're focusing on today. Observance of these laws varies widely across Jewish denominations and communities, and not everyone follows them the same way. One of the better-known rules in this category, one that surprises a lot of people the first time they hear it: meat and dairy aren't combined, according to rulings that developed through religious interpretation over time. So, if you think of familiar dishes from Arab or Western cuisine, none of them would pass in a kosher kitchen: cheeseburgers, chicken and cream sauce, lasagna with meat and cheese, pepperoni pizza. Sounds intense, right? Let's see how far this rule can go. Here's where things get stranger and deeper than you'd imagine. For households that follow this rule strictly, it isn't just don't put them on the same plate. It becomes a system that reaches into many details of the kitchen. In some observant Jewish households, you might find two separate sets of dishes, one for meat, another for dairy, with the same plate never used for both. Separate sets of cutlery, sometimes separate sinks, sometimes separate dishwashers, and separate sections in the fridge, or in some cases, separate fridges altogether. How closely a household follows these steps often depends on tradition and personal level of observance. The waiting period after eating meat before eating dairy also varies between communities. Some wait longer than others, depending on the custom followed. If you check an imported product, you might find a small symbol from one of the well-known kosher certification agencies, like OK or Star K, among others, meaning the product is certified kosher. There are organizations whose job is to inspect factories and confirm compliance with these dietary laws. This certification industry represents billions of dollars annually. So now, the big question: where did this rule come from? It traces back to a single sentence in the Torah. But strangely, that sentence isn't stated just once. It appears 3 times, twice in the book of Exodus and once in the book of Deuteronomy. The sentence is, "You shall not cook a young goat in its mother's milk." The Torah text speaks specifically about a young goat and its mother's milk, but rabbinic interpretation over the centuries expanded the ruling to cover permitted animal meats and dairy products more broadly. This single sentence, despite its brevity, became the foundation of a dietary framework followed by those who observe Jewish law. Why does the repetition matter? In Jewish tradition, when a phrase is repeated more than once in scripture, rabbis have generally not treated it as coincidence. Many take it as a sign that more than one layer of meaning is embedded in it. Talmudic scholars studied this triple repetition and derived 3 distinct applications from the same sentence. First, don't cook meat and dairy together. Don't put them in the same pot on the fire. Second, even if each is cooked separately, it's still forbidden to eat meat and dairy together. Third, the prohibition isn't limited to eating alone, but also extends to benefiting from certain meat and dairy mixtures covered by this ruling. See how that works? One single sentence, 3 layers of meaning, developed over hundreds of years of rabbinic discussion into a framework that shapes daily life for those who follow it. The text says, "Don't cook a young goat in its mother's milk," but it doesn't explain why. There is no consensus on the original reason. This has led scholars and rabbis throughout history to propose different explanations. Explanation is mercy and moral separation. Milk represents life, literally the substance a mother produces to sustain her offspring. Meat, by contrast, represents death, the body of the animal after slaughter. Cooking a young goat in the very milk meant to keep it alive is seen as a harsh contradiction between the symbol of life and the symbol of death. So the rule became a way of teaching compassion and a clear separation between the two. Another explanation is rejection of pagan ritual. Some researchers believe the text may be connected to a rejection of pagan practices carried out in the region in ancient times, but there is no consensus or definitive evidence for this interpretation. A third explanation is health and hygiene. Some writers throughout history have proposed a health-based explanation, suggesting that mixing meat and dairy in a hot climate would speed up spoilage. But most researchers don't consider this the original reason, and there's no strong historical or scientific evidence supporting it. So, which explanation is correct? The original reason remains a subject of debate. Even the great rabbis throughout history disagreed on this question, and it's this very ambiguity that makes the story even more fascinating. Many kosher restaurants choose to be either meat restaurants or dairy restaurants, because separating the two within a single kitchen requires entirely separate equipment and systems, so it's uncommon for one to serve both. Some major international airlines offer a kosher meal as a special option that can be requested when booking, prepared under kosher certification and supervision. A number of hotels around the world offer similar options, particularly in areas with larger Jewish communities. Here's a part that surprises many people. Some large food companies, even ones that don't specifically target Jewish customers, choose to obtain kosher certification for their products. For many consumers, kosher certification has come to signal extra oversight over ingredients and the production chain, even though its primary purpose is to confirm compliance with Jewish dietary law, not to assess cleanliness. What's remarkable is that all of this began with a short sentence of just a few words. Yet it has shaped the practice of observant communities in different ways for more than 3,000 years. Whether you agree with the ruling or not, it stands as an example of how an ancient religious text can leave a lasting mark on kitchens, restaurants, and the food industry to this very day. So next time you see a cheeseburger, remember, there's a 3,000-year-old story behind it. Next time, we're uncovering something even stranger that most people have never heard of. Don't forget to subscribe.